Okay, so decided to do a little recap of the season that's just gone ahead. So yeah, end of my first competitive season, competing in Classic, and to kind of review it properly, I need to go all the way back to January 2020. So sorry, it's going to be a bit of a long ramble. Give you fair warning, you probably turn off now. But if you've got nothing else to do, then just listen to me chat shit for a bit. So yeah, all the way back in 2018, did a first timer show, came forth, thought I'd just do a bodybuilding show, done with it, blah blah blah. 2019 rolls along, see other people compete, look back at the photos from that show, and I was like, I can do better than that. So yeah, I decided to compete again in 2020. So in January 2020, started working with Mr. Andy Scott to do a 19-week prep for the Body Power show, and then we were going to use that to qualify for the British and compete in the British. It was planned to do 2 shows in 2020. Pretty much 2 to 3 weeks into that prep, I got crushed on a leg press. If you haven't seen the horrendous video, then it's on my Instagram. But yeah, basically didn't know that there weren't any emergency stoppers at the bottom of the leg press, and the whole thing come down on me, and I ended up with 2 massive hematomas in both ankles. Couldn't walk for 3 days. Hospital sent me home with no painkillers and no crutches, and I was like, mate, I can't walk. But yeah, fortunately I managed to get some painkillers soon. Yeah, but I was taken to hospital by my good friend Tom Pye, and for those who aren't familiar with his story, he back in 2018, he was one day out from the NEC Universe and was literally just walked to the shop the night before the show to grab something and collapsed in the street and had a fit and a seizure. Ended up in hospital with a virus putting pressure on his brain. Was in the hospital for something like 8 weeks, all over Christmas and stuff like that. So, you know, he basically ended up going from being one day out from the biggest show of his life to having brain damage and, you know, having memory issues. So that was the guy I was training with that night. So he took me to the hospital, so I knew I couldn't say shit. There was not one thing I could complain about to this guy. So that was that in a way just kind of immediately told me that I was going to get through it and I was going to be all right. So I stayed on prep. I think I missed one meal that night, and stayed on prep. But then a few weeks later down the line, I mean, we got to 9 weeks out from the Body Power show, and COVID happened. COVID lockdown number 1, which is kind of a blessing in disguise because I was looking back at the photos, I was pretty fat. But you know, so prep ended, and I had no gym, nowhere to train. I got 2 15-kilo adjustable dumbbells and did home workouts with them, which was shit. Really frustrating time, you know, being out of work and not able to do what I love doing. Fortunately, about 10 weeks into lockdown, I managed to get hold of a barbell and some plates and stuff off of Pro Plates. Viamax sorted out with some benches and stands that were getting welded together, so I was able to cobble together some kind of home workouts. But you know, the problem is home workouts, you know, there are people saying you can train as hard as you can't. So you can't. 1, the environment's different. 2, right, I live in a 4-story flat. If I fail a squat, I drop the fucking bar on the floor. That's going through the floor. It's going into my neighbours. Right. Okay. So I couldn't do any. There was no reps that were a bit sketchy. All right. So get to fuck if you think I'm recreating that same intensity in here, because I'm not. In a gym, if I drop the fucking weights on the floor, yeah, I'm a dick and it was loud, but ultimately I haven't nearly killed someone who lives below me. So yeah, and I've got a 56-kilo girlfriend trying to spot me when I'm trying to press, you know, double her body weight. That's just not happening. So yeah, not the same. But fortunately, the gym's reopens July 25th, was it? 2020. So me and Andy come up with the plan to start with the off-season, put some mass back on, look at competing 2021. So 6 weeks into our off-season together, I got COVID. So that was another 2 weeks out of the gym. Then after I got over that, about 2 weeks after that, I still had like the COVID fatigue, so training wasn't the same. And then 2 weeks after, the fatigue had passed, I was like, great, back to training at full strength. I had 2 weeks of training before the gyms closed again. So of my 12-week off season, I had about 8 weeks of actual training, proper training. But you know, we still jumped up from about 104 kilos to 112. Managed to pack some size on. You know, for the training we did get in was really good because Andy was using some of the SST stuff, and you know, it worked really well with my body and my recovery and where I was at. But then, you know, the gym was closed down again, so we went back to doing workouts for 4 weeks and did a little tidy up, dropped the food back down, took off some excess body fat, and actually, at the end of that 4-week spot, I was actually in a pretty good place. Sitting at about, I think about 108 kilos, but I looked and felt really good. So then we were kind of gauging where to go and get back into the off season, and I think I got 3 weeks of proper training before the tier system closed all the gyms again, and then before you know it, we were in lockdown number 3. Now the thing with lockdown number 3, which was killer, was from January until June I was working away in London, and obviously living in Manchester. So when all the gyms closed, I was back to doing home workouts on if I made it back in time on a Friday night. You know, if I could get back by 10 o'clock, I could, you know, do a push session. You know, a bit sad, isn't it? After a long week, because we're doing long hours, and then train Saturday, Sunday. Always getting me Saturday, Sunday training in before I went back down to London. So I was training 2 to maybe 3 times a week, home gym sessions, for about 4 months. So not the most ideal start. I went from about 112 to 114 kilos by the time Christmas had finished and I'd eaten me bodybuilding food. Down to 100. I think it went to less than 100 kilos. I think it went to 98. But then the gyms reopened. So we were still looking at prepping that year. I had about 3 weeks of training with the gyms open again before we started prep. Before we started 16 weeks out of the Bodies by Elm. So I went from off-season weight pushing 240 to 250 pounds to starting prep at 220. It's not the best situation to be in, but there'd been so many delays in stepping back on stage that I was like, you know what, I'm not the type of person to carry on just chatting shit. I could so easily have just been like, no, I'm going to use the time to improve, put the size back on, put the muscle back on, but you know, you end up in that vicious loop of just never being ready, and I'm not about that. I wanted to do what I set out to do and step back on stage and be competitive about it. So I had that drive there, and I was just like, you know, it is what it is. Don't complain about it, don't be a little bitch, just crack on and do the work, you know. So yeah, 16-week prep for show number 1, and to be honest, like the first 8 weeks of it were fantastic. Everything was just clicking. Obviously, the rest from not training for most of the year, body was super responsive, and we changed very little in the first 8 weeks, and my body was just improving, which was great. Then I remember about 7.5 weeks out, Andy started chopping away at the food. High days were there, but they started to become a little bit more sporadic. And yeah, it started to feel like I was dieting. Pretty quickly it started to feel hard. And I was working on a job, a Sky job at the time, and I'd recently stepped up to basically be in charge of a camera for the whole time. The only way to summarise it is I got promoted during prep, during the summer, when I was dieting. So it's not a great combo, and the hours we were doing were super long, but I was determined to not let it beat me, because the film industry as a lifestyle is complete opposite to what you want lifestyle wise as a bodybuilder. Bodybuilding, you want consistency. Do your cardio at the same time, eat meals at the same time, train at the same time. You've got a training partner you can always get in at the same time. Do it on the same days. Film industry is, you don't know what hours you're working the next day, for sure, until you finish work. And even then you might have to wait a few hours for it to be confirmed. You don't know where you are. You got an idea of where you're going to be filming. You got an idea of what hours you're going to be doing, but it could all change. And more often than not, every day is different. So being super flexible and kind of just not getting stressed out by that was a real challenge. You know, one day I'd be doing cardio at 6 a.m, the next day it might be 4 a.m, the next day it might be 2 p.m, based on just hours changing. So we're going to go from night shoots to day shoots, mornings, splits, clawbacks, whatever. Where we're filming changes, so I might have to find a gym close by to wherever we're filming just to get in before they close. You know, just planning ahead so far on food. Fortunately, my girlfriend Emily was just a superstar the whole time, and just anything I needed cooking fresh, if she was available, she'd do it. So yeah, that massively helped, and I know not everyone's got the privilege of having a partner to do that for them. But anyway, that's enough complaining about how hard my job is. Made it to the Bodies by O show, which obviously two bros, bit nerve-wracking, first time on show doing classic physique, first time competing since the first time show. You know, so it was a bit nerve-wracking and leading up to it. And then I remember getting there on the day before and meeting Andy and Fraser, who's another one of his clients who competes in men's physique. And, you know, seeing those familiar faces kind of relaxed me a bit, and seeing, it's weird when I say this, but when you see the guys tanning, when you see the guys naked, basically, like that kind of weirdly relaxes me, because I look around and be like, oh, not everyone is a huge, massive, shredded monster like they appear on Instagram. Most people post their good photos and they kind of look just like how I look in normal light, you know, because everyone posts Instagram their best photos and you're just like, oh fuck, I'm behind, oh shit, this person's having cheat meals and he looks like that, blah blah blah. You forget that people are posting up their best favourite photos of themselves, and then you kind of see them, you know, stripped down for the first time, and you look around and you're like, you know what, I actually fit in. Like, but yeah, the show rolled around and went really well. Obviously won my class, then went up in the overall against Jimmy, Mikey and Marcus. You know, and Jimmy swept the floor with us, but you know, it was nice to kind of stand up, because those guys all look fantastic. And I think, you know, the comparison photos, it didn't look like I was fucking chubby cunt out of place. I looked like I fit in with those boys. So that was the kind of first be like, right, no, you've made the right decision here. You are competitive, which is cool. Then 2 weeks later, stepped on stage, the PCA Manchester, which was the show I did back in 2018. Obviously did the first timers class then. This time I did classic, which I should have always done classic, but I got talked into the first timers anyway. And then won my class in that. You know, I'd improved, looked a bit drier, had better midsection control. Yeah, and then I went through to the overall, and you know, obviously didn't take that, but again I got the photos back, and I was like, you know what, the main thing I noticed is my conditioning held up really well against, you know, some of the big boys, some of the bodybuilders. They got me in size. That's a recurring theme throughout this season. But my conditioning was really good, and then we had 4 weeks between there and the Arnolds, and me and Andy agreed that we were going to really push the conditioning further. So we depleted hard, and there was one particular week at work where I was just a zombie. I was dead on my feet, like any opportunity to go lie down on the floor of the van and just stare at the fucking roof, I was doing it. I was suffering. Yeah, that was tough, you know, and there was some hard sessions in there where it felt like my soul had just been ripped from me. But you know, you just get through it, you just crack on, you just got to do what you got to do. There's no wailing and bitching about it. It's bodybuilding, you know, do what's required of you to get where you need to be. So we got to the Arnold, the week of the Arnold, my body weight was right down, we depleted hard, and then, you know, we were filling back up, and, you know, we had to fill up a bit more aggressively, putting some more fats back in there to try and make things stick. And I came to the Arnold, and I was really, really dry and peeled. The lighting from the photos isn't great from it, but yeah, I mean, some of the photos I've got, I was like, Jesus Christ, yeah, I was tight that day. But I was moved to the outside immediately and not looked at again when we got compared. We didn't even get quarter turns. We just got one round of mandatories and then sent off. It was very brief, which is a bit frustrating when you put a lot of work into your posing and your practice and stuff, and you're not really given a chance to display that, especially because there were a lot of people in the audience there wanted to see me. But you know, you can't do anything about that. You can't change that. So then we kind of reassessed what happened at the Arnold. Just the guys, they wanted to look at were all bigger, regardless of their conditioning. You know, my conditioning was better than a lot of people's on that stage. But Andy was like, right, we're going to come in nice and full then for the PCA British, which we did. In that 2 weeks, came in 10 pounds heavier, which was great. I had some water inflammation that wouldn't move for a bit, but a couple of training sessions to get rid of that. I'd train, then get on the Stairmaster, fully, you know, hood up, covered head to toe, and then I'd sit in the sauna for, you know, 15 to 20 minutes as well, just to try and get that water off. That I just, you know, was a result of peaking 3 times and pushing the training and, you know, all that jazz, you know, rebounding. Because my body rebounds horrendously. I hold water like nothing, like a water belly, you know, Michelin Man kind of thing. But yeah, the water came off, and then we came in 10 pounds heavier to the PCA British, and I came second by 1 point, and the photos are back in, and it was the best look I've had. Each show we improved the look, and you know, by the end of the season I think we'd really nailed it. Nice and dry, nice and full, you know, still able to control the waist and bring it in. Just looked good, just looked really good. Really happy with what we ended up with, and to be second in Britain and the PCA, which is it's a good federation. You know, it's probably the biggest behind Two Bros. To come second on the first competitive season, that's nothing to be sneered at. That was good going. So overall, the first competitive season, great result. You know, the biggest thing that can be criticised for was size. I was never going to have the size because I started prep downsized. That was always going to be an uphill battle, which we kind of won a lot of the time through conditioning. I work really hard on my posing, so I think my posing and presentation helped significantly with that as well. But the good news is that means now, looking back, we've got all this information from 4 shows on peaking, rebounding, maintaining strength, what worked, what didn't. So now going into this kind of rebound phase before starting the off season officially, kind of beginning next year in about February time. You know, my body's in a great place, it wants to grow, and at the moment, I mean, I'm 1 week into the rebounds and training's flying. You know, it feels so good to be full and have a pump in the gym again. Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, I'm carrying a lot of excess water. You know, fat has jumped up a bit, like inevitably. Got out there. Body fat's gone up a bit, but can't complain too much, to be honest, because that's what happens when you go from stage lean to eating an amount of food where you don't feel like you're going to die. You know, and it's all part and parcel for the game. It's a game plan going forward. I was, for the Arnold's, when I checked in, I was 20 pounds under my weight cap. So, and that was, I think we had 1 carb up day before that. So the goal going forward is the next time I step on stage, I want that weight cap to be trying to kill me. So we got 20 pounds of stage mass to add. So that means a long off season, or 2022, in an off season, putting that size on, and probably early 2023 will be the next time I step back on stage, if we've made the necessary improvements But all of that I'll cover in another video because this has gone on for long enough. If you've listened the whole way, thank you so much for my rambling, and if you turned off somewhere halfway through, then you're not going to hear this, so it doesn't really matter at all. But if you have made it all the way through, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, blah blah blah, follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be doing more videos of my rebound phase coming up, so if you'd like to stick around and watch all of that, then thank you very much, because it means it wasn't all for nothing. Cheers guys.